Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name's Erin Wade. I'm the Deputy Managing Director for the County of Maui. We're very excited to have you for our commercial permitting workshop today. Before we get started with all the content, I'd like to have Mayor Bisson come up and share with you today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to apologize for having to reschedule this meeting from last week. And so thank you for your willingness to come in and come be with us today. You probably know there was a power outage out on the west side, and most of us, including Aaron and John and some others, were in the EOC trying to make sure it didn't turn into anything worse. So thank you again for being here today. So you're gonna get a lot of information. I wanted to clarify one thing. I know it says here 3 to 5, and some of you pointed out the sign below that says 3 to 7. You can stay as long as you're able to stay, but I think 3 to 5 is how long the presentations will be. And if you have extra questions, staff are willing to stay longer. So if you think it's coming up on 5 and you haven't had your question answered, you can still come up and do that. But what's most important is to share with you I guess our awareness that this is an issue that is obviously very, very important, and it's time to do this. A lot of the residential rebuild is on its way, as you've probably witnessed and you've seen driving through Lahaina. And of course, our commitment is to do the same with the commercial properties. We've met with some of you folks individually. Some of your groups have come up to the office, or our teams have gone to you. And many of you have come to the different community meetings that are held. So today is going to be, I think, some really good information being shared to help how we can speed up this process. And so for that, I just wanted to thank our team and also thank, again, all of you for taking the time to be here. I hope you guys have a really good meeting. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. We will jump right into it with a little overview of what we hope to cover today. So first, I just want to share a concept that is really important to consider as we start working and moving within the commercial district. The Kuleana in progress concept, we have a lot going on still. There's still road repairs, there's still curbs, there's still signage, there's all kinds of crews that continue to be in there. So as permitting and contracting is picking up, we just want awareness and respect and the ability to work together simultaneously while construction begins. Today, we do want to share that we have updates on the Rebuild Lahaina plan. We have permitting pathways, so both planning side permitting and building side permitting are here today to share with you how to expedite your review for any plans that you have moving forward. If moving forward on the shoreline feels really difficult, we are setting up a buyout program. So we have folks to share with you information about that. And if you want to talk one-on-one, we can do that later as well. Water Department is here to talk about permits. And then we'll wrap it up with next steps in what's going to happen in future meetings. This will be one of a series of meetings that we host. We know that the most urgent need is folks have a lot of questions about how to move forward with their particular project. But then I know you're all considering too, well, what does my piece mean in the context of the larger rebuild of Lahaina? So future meetings, we're going to try to cover some of those things. In terms of the Kuleana in progress, there are multiple recovery efforts. The image on this slide shows the railing repair work that's underway. It's almost 85% complete at this point. So but there are active crews. So there will still be areas within the district that are periodically shut down or shut down for, I wouldn't say extended periods of time, but a couple months at a time in some cases. We mostly, I think, wanted to convey to you folks that we're anxious and eager to help and to look for opportunities that we can work together where there's consistency and where we have the ability to find common ground on different projects. So anyway, I wanted to share that. And then John Smith is here he's our recovery administrator. He's going to share a little with you about infrastructure updates.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Mayor. Welcome. So I have a feeling I'll be back up for the Q&A session, so I'll just do a couple slides now, and then we'll continue with the program. So just to level set with everyone, from an infrastructure standpoint, water and sewer. Sure. I can't make this thing tall enough. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Is that better? Whoa. All right, let me start over. Sorry. I'm used to a much rowdier crowd from Lahaina. This is very formal. Okay. You guys can yell at me too. That's fine. So just a quick update to level set across the playing field. Water and sewer has been restored. There are still projects ongoing, like Aaron noted. The pier's open, so there is commercial activity today. We're looking at whether or not to extend some of those timeframes with the commercial operators. I'm sure some of you are here today. That request is in. We haven't made a determination on that yet, but looking at whether or not we should start a little bit earlier. And that probably makes sense to accommodate the sun. And then parking management. We have instituted a group for security for both Park Maui and just a security group that is there 7 days a week during daylight hours, and we will continue to support that as long as it's needed. So it's in place now. We're setting up contracts so that can last longer. And so while you folks are rebuilding, you can know that there'll be places to park and there'll be security in and around the area. So I think that's important to know. Water supply is doing fire flow testing of all the hydrants, and Chemo's here today and the team in their blue shirts. Good job, guys. And they can answer questions for you folks for anything to do with water. And let's see what else we have. Aaron already hit on the Front Street. We are at 85%, and there's a big effort on Front Street to look at the streetscape plan and how that'll look in the future. That's an ongoing project, part of the Rebuild Lahaina plan. I'm sure Jen will talk about that later. The next slide. What we've been asking ourselves is, like, what are the barriers that you folks are facing, and how can we help that? We can't, wave the magic wand and get rid of all the laws and all the rules, but we definitely notice places where we could waive some things and we could make it more streamlined in other ways. So things like SMA's Malka Front Street, that was a fairly easy one. That's been done for quite some time now, and I think most people know about that. Looking at right-of-way improvement requirements and whether or not those make sense for the rebuild in this case. We've waived some of that. And you've seen a series of what we call RCDs, or recovery directives, come out. Those are posted on Maui Recovers now. And we'll talk about those a little bit more in detail as is noted. But what we're really looking at in terms of the recovery is, where can we not necessarily bend the rules, but where can we streamline it so that it's easy for you folks to make it through the process. So we're doing as much of that as we possibly can. And that includes updates to street codes. Things like, and this is, I know we have council members here today and you folks have been involved with this, and thank you very much for that. Things like just changing the requirement for a balcony and awning in that area are really helpful. Okay, we got a question. They're available online. We're being recorded. You can take notes, but you can also watch it like 10 times if you want to. Okay. So really, where can we make things clearer? Where can we make things faster? Where can we make it go as well as it possibly can? That's what we're working on. That's what one of Recovery's missions is. And that's just hitting the highlights of it. So with that, next slide? All of what I'm talking about, you can just hit that QR code and you can go review those. I'll ask Aaron to come back up and do the next one.
So as John is saying, the emergency proclamation still stands and has given the county, through the mayor's emergency proclamation, has given the county the authority to waive certain portions of the Maui County Code. So where we have found it useful to expedite the permitting process, we have done so. So there's several of those within various roles and responsibilities throughout the permitting process. So as we walk through today with the different departments, you'll hear about each of those. So the format for today is basically going to be, we'll provide a presentation and overview for all of the permitting teams that would touch a permit moving forward. And then afterwards, as you can see, we have tables set up throughout the space. So if you want to ask a question that's specific to your property, you're more than welcome to do so. If you don't know the status of your water meter, or you're not sure if a historic district permit's going to be required or not, you're more than welcome to visit the tables and ask those questions directly. And probably good to just connect with some of the staff members too, so you know you've got a go-to person you can call moving forward in the future. We are gonna start high level and then move more and more specific. So we're gonna start with Jen Maiden to talk about the Rebuild Lahaina plan and her efforts with that. Thank you, Jen.
I'm Jen Maiden with the Office of Recovery, and before we dive deep into the permitting pathways for rebuilding, I'm going to provide a very brief high-level overview of the work that is ongoing in the Rebuild Lahaina plan. And I just want to share one thing that I have learned over the last couple of years is that recovery is a constant dance, balancing the urgency and expediency of the community's needs of today with the holistic and thoughtful approaches of building a more resilient and strong future. So we're constantly zooming in, zooming out, and to have a more clear view of the challenges from multiple angles. So I think today, I hope you'll kind of see that, where we're going into detail on things, and then we're stepping back and taking a higher level, more holistic view. And both of these are absolutely critical to support the community in recovery. So first, diving in, the Lahaina Long-Term Recovery Plan is a short-term priority project in the Long-Term Recovery Plan. It's a comprehensive plan for rebuilding Lahaina, focusing on the commercial core, public spaces, streets and mobility, and Front Street. I'm going to briefly go over some of the community engagement themes that have come out of our work, the commercial architectural design guidelines, the streets and mobility plan, and what our next steps are in this process. So first, just to orient us, the project area for the Rebuild Lahaina plan is Prison Street on the south, Baker Street to the north, and the highway to the shoreline. It includes the majority of Historic District 2 and portions of a Historic District 1. It is completely within the National Historic Landmark District. And on this map, you'll see I also have the project boundary for the Lahaina Royal Complex. And our projects have a bit of overlap in the harbor area, but I want to assure you that our project teams are constantly working in close coordination for our projects. So community engagement is critical in the Rebuild Lahaina plan, and the community has already shared with us so much. So we absolutely did not start from scratch. We built upon the efforts of the West Maui Community Plan and the Long-Term Recovery Plan. We held engagement events through May through September of last year, including multiple stakeholder meetings, community design workshops, and open houses. And on the Maui Recovers page, for the project page for Rebuild Lahaina, there is a community engagement summary report where you can see the results of the engagement. Just to touch on briefly some of the high-level themes that came out of our engagement: honoring Lahaina's unique heritage while rebuilding for the future, making Lahaina safe, walkable, and inclusive for all, reviving Lahaina's economy with a focus on local entrepreneurship, improving accessibility and mobility options to reduce car dependency, building back with environmental foresight and resilience, creating welcoming, functional spaces for community use, promoting housing that is attainable for locals and island appropriate, and finally rebuilding with thoughtful, intentional urgency. So some of the exciting work that has come out of our efforts over these last many months to provide clear design guidance and review pathways in the historic districts. This is in the county's historic districts 1 and 2. We have developed the commercial architectural design guidelines, and there's also a companion RCD, Recovery Coordination Directive, that John mentioned, that allows administrative review of projects that meet the design guidelines. So the county's Cultural Resources Commission, or CRC, has the authority to approve all development applications in the county's historic districts 1 and 2. The design guidelines support and expedite planning staff review and CRC review of projects in these areas, and provide predictability to applicants, and reduce the CRC's review burden, especially as the rebuilding accelerates and they see more and more permits. So the design guidelines currently are going through review with the CRC. We're hoping that at their early March meeting, they will be adopted. And as I briefly mentioned, the latest RCD 6, Recovery Coordination Directive, allows for administrative review by the planning department if a project meets the design guidelines, meaning that the project does not have to go to the CRC review for review and approval. Moving on to the Streets and Mobility Plan, which provides a coordinated mobility framework for recovery and rebuilding. This plan, along with 2 more RCDs, 2 and 4, provide clarity on required street improvements for commercial properties. Most of the streets in Lahaina's commercial core were not obviously built to today's roadway standards, but in many ways they worked, and they certainly contributed to the town's charm and character. But in some ways they presented challenges. And rebuilding provides us the opportunity to address these issues while also respecting the town's character, and while also ensuring that we impact private properties as little as we can as possible. So Department of Public Works, DPW, will use the streets plan to review building permits for street improvement requirements and right-of-way dedication. The plan also addresses, more in a broad nature, pedestrian and bicycle facilities, transit, the Maui bus and private transit, and parking. And so just moving on, our next steps in this process for Rebuild Lahaina Plan, just to wrap up, we will be finalizing the Streets and Mobility Plan. That's not out yet, but we're doing some internal review. We'll be finalizing that, finalizing design plans for Front Street, have both of those to share with the community in April is our goal. And we will be working on identifying critical public projects and programs within the commercial core and outlining implementation schedules and management mechanisms to bring these projects to reality. So thank you for the opportunity to share at this higher level. And I believe I'm passing it off to Jackie Takakura.
So my name's Jackie Takakura. I'm the acting planning director for 2 weeks now for the Department of Planning. And it's really nice to see some familiar faces here. So, you know, from the neighborhood workshops and the commercial events and so forth. So thank you for hanging in there with us. So I'm going to talk about permitting for rebuilding for commercial property in Lahaina. Before we get started, I want to refer to some of the terms for the different areas as we go. And a lot of them, they look like alphabet soup, I know, but they explain the why of the permits. And it's just not, there's a purpose to it all, because we have certain things that are really important to us that we need to make sure any consequences or impacts are minimized. And I think looking around the room, I know that some of you are experts in this stuff. You know SMA, what it stands for and what it means. But there might be some of you who, you know, you've been doing your business for all these years and you never really needed a permit from the planning department. So bear with me for those of you that, you know, this is review. But I just want everybody to know, because They can sound intimidating, but we're here to help you and get you through these. And as John and Aaron have mentioned, we've done a lot of things to try to expedite the process to make it a little simpler and quicker for you to, so that you can get your permits and get back into your business. But the first one is, BP, building permit. That's the end goal, right? And then we have special management area. And so that's an area with specific rules to protect, preserve, and where possible, restore the natural resources of the coastal zone of Hawaii. And then we have the HDs, which stands for Historic Districts 1 and 2. And those are zoning codes. So those are in Maui County Code, and those are for the areas of Lahaina that have significant history and culture of Maui, which should be preserved. Within the Historic Districts 1 and 2, there are two different permit types. One is the HDS, which is a sign permit, and HDX, which is the Historic District permit, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail. Next, we have the National Historic Landmark District, or NHLD, and that's an area of buildings, structures, sites, or objects that the U.S. Secretary of the Interior has designated as having exceptional national significance in American history, architecture, archaeology, or culture. So that's NHLD. Related to those two, the Historic District and the NHLD, is SHPD, which is State Historic Preservation Division, and that's out of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. They have some authorities given to them by the bottom one, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, the laws that govern historic and archaeological and different types of preservation. In between SHPD and HRS is the SSV, which is a shoreline setback variance, which I know it might sound a little intimidating, but most of you do not need that, but I do have to mention it because there might be a few that might be affected by that one. Okay, so let's get into the maps. So step one would be to find the property on the map. And after the meeting, when you're out there chatting with our staff, I have a little sign on there that you can use a QR code to go to our land use viewer, that you can look this up on our GIS layer. But let's first look at how the location on the map determines the permit requirements. And what this map shows here are areas and numbers of property, including, if you can see the pink colored area are the commercial properties in the historic districts, and we have a count of 87 damaged commercial properties there in the pink. In the yellow is the National Historic Landmark District, and we have a count of 36 damaged commercial properties. And then I also have in the upper orange, if you can see that, the Limahana area, because there are 18 damaged commercial properties in that area. So generally speaking, the further Mauka you go, the less requirements you have. And as we go in the Makai direction, then the special management area and the shoreline rules kick in. And then also within the NHLD and historic districts, HCDs, there can be impacts on the requirements. So the pathway is going to depend on the location of the property. So I'm going to start with the simplest and work my way down to the more complex, and which goes kind of Mauka to Makai. So if your property is Mauka of the highway, which is yellow and then up, those are basically just going to need the building permit application and then consistency with whatever the zoning district is. If you're not sure of your zoning, you can look at the our land use viewer, which I have the QR code outside for. And so Limahana, I believe this would be the case for them because they're above the highway and outside of the special management area. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this one is getting a little bit complex, but not too hard. And this is going to be within that pinkish reddish area that's within the special management area, but not near the shore and not in the historic landmark district or historic districts. So within this area, reconstruction may be exempt. And this is called Category W because the governor's message, Governor Green added this category to the list of exemptions in the SMA rules, or in the SMA parts of the HRS. But it has to meet this following criteria to get this exemption. And there's 4 things. First, the structure is not on a shoreline parcel. Second, the reconstruction begins within 6 years from the date the proclamation is issued, and I believe it was last year. Or no, proclamation might have been 2023 or 4, but we'll work with you on that regarding the dates. The reconstructed structure is similar to its original footprint or overall dimensions that were permitted and existing. And then fourth, it's in compliance with the requirements of the floodplain management standards, which I will cover shortly. So to see if you meet this criteria to be considered exempt, we do have a self-certification form for you to fill out, and we would send that to applicants when we receive the permit application. Getting a little bit more complex if the property is in the special management area and in the National Historic Landmark District. So you can see it's that combination of the pinkish and the yellowish in the middle there. So the special management area permit may be needed, but as I described in the previous slide, it may be exempted if you can meet that criteria. And long-range division staff will review the design and may make suggestions to keep the form consistent with the character of the district. And we'll also help you with the State Historic Preservation Division review. There may be some structures that have historic significance that need to go to the Cultural Resources Commission. And then in addition to making sure that it's consistent with the zoning standards, we'll work with you regarding West Maui Community Plan and design guidelines if applicable. Okay, so kind of narrowing it down a little bit further. Now we get into the historic districts 1 and 2. And those are the highlighted, it's a smaller area in yellow and purple, and we have a count of 87 parcels in that area. So like the NHLD parcels, which I was just on that last slide, parcels in the historic districts may also have to be consistent with the shoreline and SMA, community plan, design guidelines. And note that there's a part of the Maui County Code 19.52 that has specific requirements for historic districts 1 and 2 because it is a zoning code. Now, if the design follows the draft design guidelines, it can be approved administratively, no Cultural Resources Commission. Staff will prioritize and review like-for-like rebuilds. Now, we're not saying you have to do like-for-like. Like, say you want to build something completely different or something new, or that is totally fine too. Those would just go through the normal process and go to this Cultural Resources Commission for review and approval. One difference with the historic districts as compared to NHLD is that parking requirements are waived, so that makes things a little bit easier, and that's for one of the RCDs that Erin mentioned. Depending if the business is putting up a new sign, there might be a HDS sign permit, might be needed too, and those are approved administratively by staff, not by the CRC, so those are pretty quick too. As I mentioned before, our staff will help you with applying for the SHPD review for the state. And then, as I mentioned, the SMA permit may be needed, but it might be exempted. And finally, well, the staff will make sure that the HDX, the Historic District Assessment Permit, is correctly approved and attached to the building permit application so that Public Works gets it right away and can take the next steps for the building permit. Okay, now we save the best for last. This is the most complex. And those would be properties that are commercial in the historic districts, in the SMA, and on the shoreline. But as stated with all the other areas, staff will assist. And we have 2 groups of planners that will assist. First is a long-range division, and we have our cultural resources table back there outside. They will be assisting with instructions and the template for the SHPD review submittal, and then the expeditious processing of like-for-like rebuilds. Anything else will be subject to review and compliance with the draft architectural commercial design guidelines that Jen mentioned. And then the HDX administrative approval and transmittal for the building permit. The other part is the shoreline side and the SMA. So an SMA would be required and subject to review and approval by the Planning Commission. And a shoreline setback variance may be required for the few properties that are in the erosion hazard area. And so if you think you might be one of those or you're not sure, come talk to our shoreline planners outside, because every parcel is a little different. So it's probably best for you to get the exact information you need from our shoreline staff. And then once the HDX and the SMA permit are approved, then the building permit can proceed. I want to mention one more thing, even though it's not a planning department permit, there may be a flood development permit requirement from Public Works, and that's for properties that are in the purple, which is AE, and the brown areas on the map. And this is a FEMA requirement that we can't get around, but I just want to let you know that this one might be on there depending on where you are. So just so you're aware. I don't want you to be thinking, oh, she said don't need any other permits, but then you need that one, and like, oh, shucks. So just so you are aware. But like I said, it's based on where you are on the map. Okay, so now I want to pivot a little bit to what we mean by reconstruction and what we mean by like for like, because those terms come up a lot. Some of the exceptions in the emergency proclamations refer to reconstruction. And when we say like for like reconstruction, we mean same structure, but okay to increase a floor area up to 10%, and some reconfiguring of the structure is okay. And if you have to make some modifications to meet the requirements for the flood development permits, that's okay too. We'll review the permit to make sure they meet the criteria for reconstruction so that they can be expedited. As mentioned, we have that self-certification form for the SMA exemption to ensure that the project meets the criteria to be an exemption and not require the full SMA permit. And that's going to require some basic information about what your plans are going to be, a description of the prior structure, description of proposed structure, number of units, stories, footprint, and so forth. And we have been seeing permits for bigger coming through, but if you want to go smaller, that's fine too, especially if it's going smaller to get out of harm's way. So that's okay. This next slide is just another, don't forget, just like the flood development permits, the SHPD review is a separate process because that's a state one, right, DLNR. But we do assist applicants with submitting their review request. We have the templates and instructions, and we send that right away to the applicants as soon as we receive the application. And keep in mind the SHPD review does take some time, so it's best to apply right away. As soon as you know, get that going, and we can help you with that. So in a nutshell, these are 4 things that you can do to keep the permit moving. Follow the commercial design guidelines, and the link is available on the Maui Recovers website. Submit your SHPD materials early. Do that SMA exemption form. And then contact us if you have questions, and either cultural related or shoreline related, or we even have zoning people here you can talk to about your building permit. So we're here to help, and yeah, we want to help you get your permits going so you can get your building permit and get going and get back in business. So that's it from planning. We'll be outside over there, so come see us after. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. That is a lot of content. So I know you're looking forward to being able to watch it again when it's posted. So just so you know, about 72 hours, we should have this recording posted again if you have to go back and take a look. Next up, we have the mitigation buyout program. That's going to be you, right, John? You're just going to share some high-level information about that. Mostly because, I'll just introduce this real quick. After you saw the complexity going from pretty easy up across the highway to more and more complex as it gets closer to the ocean, I know there's decisions to be made and cost benefit that you folks got to take a look at. So we wanted to create some options for you. So John's going to share a little bit about that.
Thanks, Aaron, and thanks, Jackie. That was a really helpful, even though I've been in it and helping with planning department for quite some time now, that was actually really helpful to see it laid out that way, from the least complex to the most complex. So what we're calling a strategic voluntary mitigation buyout program is pretty simple. It's in the historic district 1 and 2. It's on the Mackay side of Front Street. And this program is not final yet because it is actually part of the CDBG DR program. So right now, it is with HUD in terms of what the program looks like, and it's open for public comment. So that comment period, I'm looking around for my team. I think it's March 4th. March 3rd. Is when the comment period opens. But I think the important thing for you folks to know from us today is that you have a chance to comment on that buyout program right now. So we laid it out in there, what it's all about and what it's for. But as it gets more and more complex and folks run out of options sometimes, we wanted to make sure that we did have an option. And that's what we heard from all the community input. So that's where that program development came from. That's where it stands today. After the March close of the action plan comment period, just for that program, then we'll roll it out. So we'll bring it out to community meeting and we'll bring it back to this meeting so you can understand if you want to participate. Again, it's voluntary. This is not an eminent domain thing. This is just another option for folks that may decide I'd like to try to sell this property. That's the simple version. I have some handouts here, and we have a QR code to explain it further. You can go straight to the Ho'okumaho website to see the details of that plan. So we'll take questions on it later, and we'll have people back at the table. Actually, right over there, Jeannie, you want to raise your hand? If you have questions on that one, she can help answer those. Okay? Oh, there it is. You can scan that QR code. Okay. Four leaf. All right. So right after the disaster, Jordan Molina and myself and several others got together with a number of agencies from California who had just gone through wildfires themselves, and said, hey, you guys need to set up an expedited process. And so we put that out to bid, and Four Leaf won the contract, so that now everybody kind of knows that name. But what I want to say is this is really an extension of the building permit application that DSA runs. So it's DSA is doing all this work behind the scenes. It's not all about Four Leaf, even though they have a really catchy name. But really this is an extension of what Public Works and Planning Department do. But we want to explain what we've set up inside, so I'll just tee you up. Thank you.
Can you hear me? All right, we're going to introduce our staff. If you haven't already met us, talked to us on the phone, been to Gateway in Lahaina, or met us out in the field. We have our office and inspection staff. My name is Regina Dela Cruz. I'm the project manager. We have Shaina Hippolito, who's in the back there. She is our lead community development technician, and she is also our office supervisor and all the things. You probably hear from her more than you hear from most. We've got Desalise Santiago, who is our senior community development. She's going to be doing primarily a majority of all of the commercial and multifamily, so you'll be talking to her if you submit your permit. We have Elena Burke, who's our newest permit tech, and then we have our guys out in the field, Noah Gartside, who's our senior inspector. We have Ron Babini, and then we just hired an inspector trainee from on island that's from Lahaina, Cody Gaynor. So we're really excited about having him on the team. And you should be talking to all of us at some point once you submit your permit. Okay, so what we've done and what's in our queue, and I'll go over that and kind of explain what that is. Multifamily, non-residential is a mix of multifamily and commercial, and usually tenant improvements. So it's not just non-residential, it's also multifamily, it's also commercial. So far, we've issued 26 permits, and tenant improvements we've got in the Lahaina Cannery that have been issued and doing the work is First Hawaii Bank, West Maui Sports, and Lahaina Jewelry. We've got multifamily condos. We have Opukea, Pu'u, Noah Beach Estates, Ho'onanea condos, and then Emerald Plaza Estate. All of those permits have been issued, and they're in doing inspections. We have completed 9, and that includes Kahoma Village condos, and then we've completed a couple of tenant improvements in Lahaina Cannery that are Village Gallery and Lahaina Gelato. And then we've got Sele, Pepe, and then West Maui YMCA that are in those completed permits. We have 163 in review. 121 of those 163 are actually Puamana condos, so because there's so many structures and so many units. All of the rest is a combination of commercial and, again, multifamily, and then some tenant improvements. We do have a church that came in on Malo Street that should be going out the door hopefully in the next few weeks. Let's see. All right, so once you, the permit, hold on one second. When you apply through, which one is it? The building permit does not include the planning, electrical, plumbing. Yeah, the building permit doesn't include grading, civil, driveway, electrical, and plumbing. You have to submit those permits separately through the county, not directly to us. For LEAF, we just do the building plan review and the building inspection. So all those other ancillary permits still have to be done through the county. And then factors that, I'm so sorry. Where are we? I'm just gonna look over here. Yeah, I think that'll help because I'm too short and I can't see. All right, here we go. Factors that may impact the expedited plan review are additional structures beyond what was existed in the pre-fire, location of the project, which we've heard prior, could be SMA, NHLD, and shoreline, parcel flags, which could be wastewater, access, or fire flow, and then timeliness in returning required revisions to us. And then failure to address all required plan review comments. So once we've got the plan review comments out, it depends on how fast your architect and engineer can get back to us. And that really determines the timeline and could reduce your timeliness. And then failure to address all required plan review comments. If we send 10 comments and you've only responded to 5 and we've waited all the time to get your response, that kickstarts that 5-day return again. So it reduces the time it takes for us to get it approved. For LEAF, Recovery Permit Center is responsible for building code review, intake, routing, and building inspections. Again, we do not review electrical, plumbing, driveways, civil. So I just want to be clear that we have a narrow review when it comes to commercial. Our intake timelines, 1 to 3 business days is usually the completeness review. So as we get the permits through MAPS, the county system, through the disaster recovery website. We get 1 to 3 days for a completeness review, and then again, depends on how long it takes you to get back to us. Once we get to complete, as soon as it goes to our plans examiners, it's 5 business days to first comment, no matter what. I think we're at least 99%. We might have missed a few here and there by a day or two. Let's see, additional notes to remember. We need the contractor's awarded price. It's required to calculate building permit fees. So we can't just take your estimate. We need the actual awarded price in order to determine the fees. And then please, all pages should be stamped with full verbiage, expiration date, and signature of design professional on the plans. I think we've got some kickback here and there from some of the design professionals not wanting to stamp every page, but it's required for the county. So it's a requirement. Thank you.
They've been incredibly helpful in not just getting us up and moving on recovery permits. They've helped us to the point where DSA told us yesterday they've cleared their backlog of permits. So we are processing as they come in now. So we're in a really good position, and that's thanks to the staff augmentation that's been provided by 4LEAF. So very exciting. I want to invite up Kimo Landgraf, our Deputy Director of Water, to share with you about water.
Hello, everybody. Kimo Landgraf. I'm a deputy for water supply. So we want to help you guys get through this as quickly as possible. So what we're requesting is that if you send us an email, water.supply@co.maui.hi.us. I have a flyer, so you don't have to write that down. Please include your name and contact information, phone number, and if we contact the owner or if we do the consultant, either one, doesn't matter. Please include our property details, which would include your address, TMK, and if you happen to know the water supply account number. The other thing that we're asking for is if you have an idea on what you want to rebuild, or if you have even a preliminary design, please include that. So the more information we have, the easier it is. We can start looking at it before you submit the permit. Once we get that email with all the details, we will go out to the property and we will inspect it. We're going to look at the service lateral. We're going to look at the meter boxes. We're going to look at if there's any existing backflow assemblies on the property. After we go over it, see what's there, we will send you an email back and let you know what we found and maybe what needs to be done. Most of the work will probably have to be done by the water department, but if it's a backflow that needs to be tested, that would be on the owner of the property. So like I said, we want to help you guys move through this as quickly as possible. So as much details as you can give us in the front really helps us a lot. Yeah, so this one is the more complicated part of it. We have a second brochure that's really for the consultant to look at. There's two. So I have a simple one for the owner so they can see what kind of got to be done. And there's a little bit more complicated brochure that I have that you can give to your consultant that shows you more details about everything that will be done or needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimo. I do want to highlight too, one of the things that has been really great are the folks that have been kind of the guinea pigs in the process that have been able to put permits in and identify where there's roadblocks or obstacles. Several of the Front Street Recovery Group folks, you've been calling and sharing, oh, this is where it's stuck. We had one of the things that came up was the fire flow testing. And they said, you know, it's really tricky for us to get in and get the fire flow testing done. So I want to thank Department of Water Supply who offered to be providing that service for all of Lahaina. So thank you for that. Okay, so just wrapping up, in next steps, what to do if you're a property owner. The first thing is, you know, determine where your property is and what applies. So we have multiple places today that you can go and check in on that. We also launched a website today specific to property owners. So if you go to that website, it's mauirecovers.org/commercial. You can find out any of the areas that were addressed today, and it will take you to all of the maps that were referenced. Determine if you're moving forward with a like-for-like rebuild, whether you want to just replace what you had or if you're planning on changing and expanding. That's going to determine what your pathway is going to be. Prepare your application materials, and then your first round, typically, if you're not above the highway, your first round is going to be going to the planning department. There's going to be a permit trigger for planning first before you get to building permit. Once you've done that, and you've made it through the planning process, you can go into the Recovery Permit Center for building permit process. Next slide. Great. So we wanted to share contact information for all the folks and departments you've heard from today. As we said, we're going to have tables available around the room that you can visit with folks. The other couple folks in the room that I wanted to share are Lahaina Restoration Foundation. Theo Morrison is here. Yay! Theo's doing amazing work, so please stop by and hear from her about the great efforts of Lahaina Restoration on their projects, and then we're going to have them back next time. And also, Captain Oliver Voss is here from the fire department in the back. If you have fire code related questions. Thanks for being here, Oliver. Next slide. Okay, so we have scheduled a follow-up workshop for April 7th, same time, same place, where we'd like to go over some of the more big picture items that we addressed, and that's gonna include, if you wanna hop to the next one, the Historic Restoration Master Plan, which is with Lahaina Restoration Foundation. We're gonna give them a moment to share with you all of the great planning work that they've been doing. We want to talk about the Royal Complex efforts. As I said, I know all of this is you're planning your project in context with what's happening in the bigger picture. So we want to be able to shed some light on those efforts that are moving forward. The harbor restoration, we've invited Dobor to be here to share about timelines about harbor restoration. And then more on the Front Street specific design process. So that's what to look for next. Next slide. Okay, so like I said, format for today, we're happy to entertain any kind of general questions you might have. And then if you have specific questions, we'll do that for a little bit, and then we'll probably break by 4:15, 4:20, so that if you have individual property specific questions, you can go seek the experts at the tables. All right, would anyone like to begin with a question? The flood zone question. So we didn't bring Barry. I'm just gonna repeat it if it's okay. So the question was, what about the flood zones? The flood zone, you'll be able to tell if your property's in the flood zone from the map, and there's links on the website that we provided to see if it's in the flood zone. Typically, they're gonna ask you to elevate, whether it's to raise the elevation of your property or to raise the building if it's in the flood zone. Best though to consult with Barry Uyoka, who is the flood zone gal. She's very knowledgeable. Barry, and there will be a link that you can connect with her. Okay. Any more questions? Yes. So there has not been any determination, I can say, because folks have their private properties and are able to make a determination of what they want to do with their private property. We do understand that there's several that are extremely narrow. The DLNR has not reinstated those lease agreements, so that makes a handful of those, 5 or 6 of those, even more narrow and more challenging to develop, which is why we're offering the buyout program. If folks do choose to participate in the buyout program, the intention is for those properties to be purchased by the county and turned into public open space. If folks want to pursue the building permit process, they are welcome to do so through the process that was shared today. Okay. Hi, Frank. So they have not made that clear to us. I think they will be participating on a property by property basis. If you engage with them about the lease agreement or about a rebuild, you'd have to speak with them directly. All they have told us is that the prior leases have been voided. Go ahead, Todd.
Could you repeat the question too, just so we have it on record for the recording so people know that?
Thank you. So the question was, will DLNR allow property owners to build out over the water? And my response was, they're not, they're gonna treat that as an individual property by property basis. And the conversation would have to happen with them because we don't have jurisdiction there. Okay. All right, yes. Do you want to answer that, John? Okay, I'll jump in. So it's through our Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Fund. So that is that federal monies, the $1.6 billion that was received from Housing and Urban Development. It's federal monies that we're looking to add an opportunity within the action plan. So an action plan has to be adopted and approved by HUD to allow us to use those monies for different purposes. Thus far, the majority of that money is going to housing redevelopment, infrastructure, things like that. Now we're creating this opportunity for the buyout program as well. That's where the money would come from. Did you want to explain more?
So when that money comes with a component of hazard mitigation, so out of the 1.6, $213 million has to go towards hazard mitigation. So the money for the buyout program comes from that 213 million HazMit program. It doesn't. Some of the questions we got, does that mess up all your housing stuff that you're doing with DR? And the answer is no. We do need to do hazard mitigation projects, and that's one of them. I don't want to take over the questions, but Aaron's doing a great job.
Go ahead, Thorne.
Yeah, that, I mean, is there any determination on how to do land values for the appraisals? That's not detailed out yet in the action plan, and that is part of what you can comment on right now in the action plan. So we're looking for feedback for that, but no formal determination has been made on how that land appraisal value will be done. But I can say that it will need to be appraised, of course. The county can't come into any sort of acquisition without going through an appraisal process. Okay, I think the question is, if you get a better bid, can you get a reduction in your fee? And I think the answer is yes, but I would have to confirm that with Four Leaf. Where are they? Do you know that? Oh, is that? Okay, yeah. I'll let Leslie answer that. Off. Yeah, that's it.
It's just kind of tying our hands before we actually know what the contractor is really bid.
Hey, oh, Leslie, sorry. Do you mind chatting afterwards? So this is Leslie Otani. She's our division chief for Development Services Administration. Thanks for being here, Leslie. Okay, any other questions? Yes. The question, she was stating that they have a lease or had a lease with DLNR that was an extended lease that was expensive and wondering if there would be a refund of those monies. As we said before, we don't really have any authority or jurisdiction over those leases, so you would need to talk with DLNR. We would like to invite them next time. If you want to do, we can do that. We'll invite them to be here next time for a specific conversation on Shoreline. Okay, we can do that. Any other questions? So the question is for the properties that are state-owned and were leased to private properties, would the county acquire it? And the answer is no. Those go back to the state. Okay, Gaya. Thanks for that question. So the question was, the courthouse is in Lahaina Restoration Foundation's jurisdiction. That ROE is still valid to this day. And as you know, we have given a grant to Lahaina Restoration Foundation for the restoration of the building. The continued use throughout the district is under discussion, but I think there is ongoing expectation that LRF will be involved in participating through programming, buildings, and all kinds of things. They've been an awesome partner. Tony. The question was, is there a deadline for the buyback program?
Yeah, we will be setting a deadline for participation for that program, but not until after we get through this comment period. So that when that program rolls out, we'll come back and we'll talk more specifically about how the program will work and the deadlines to apply. So we will have some control over how the application process works. Thank you.
I just want to supplement and thank Councilmember Sugimura and Councilmember Tom Cook are here. We do have 2 additional programs where buyout can take place. One is our Open Space Fund, and one is the Shoreline Retreat Fund. So we do have additional sources should this time frame expire. We do only have 6 years to spend down the $1.6 billion. So we're looking for projects that have the shorter turnaround times to make sure that we can execute. But don't let that prevent you from coming in and asking about a buyout if that's what makes the most sense for you. Okay. Councilmember Sugimura.
So the question, and thank you for that question, is recently it was announced that $100 million would go towards the continuation of the bypass north. And that comes from those same funds that I talked about. So that it's a hazard mitigation project as well. And like was stated, you know, that project's been planned on the books for many, many years, and it really just makes sense to continue it for Lahaina to move north. So it is coming from that same fund that I talked about, that 213 million that we talked about earlier. Thank you. I'm so sorry, I don't remember the name of the street, but it's the same street that the West Maui Hospital was planned to be on. Who knows it? Somebody in here. You guys know where I'm talking about now, though, right? Okay. I'd like to see that article. Okay. More questions? Leilani? Yeah? I think Jackie said yes. Is that? Yes. Smaller is okay. It's in the criteria as we've discussed. The general criteria is in the document that I'm pointing you folks to, and I would encourage you folks to read it and comment on it if it's not something that you're in agreement with. We want to take all those comments so that we can show HUD that we've listened to the community and we're doing exactly what has been asked.
Okay, great. It feels like maybe people are anxious to go ask specific questions to the group. I do want to introduce Jade as well, who has launched a business survey. Do you want to come share about that a little bit, Jade? And then we'll break and you can get information directly.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Jade Rojas Latisi. I'm the director for the Office of Economic Development. A little tardy today because we wanted to make sure that we had this Maui Nui Business Health Check survey live for you all. So this is really going to give us a better idea of where you are with not just the rebuild process, but many other elements in your business right now too. So we'd love for you to be able to take this survey, and it's for everyone, all businesses throughout our economy, whether you were directly affected or indirectly affected. So please share it throughout the community. The survey is live now, and it'll be closing on April 30th. And also too, it's a really great way for us to push out additional resources too. We have many great opportunities, whether it's federal subsidies for workforce development programs, if you want to know when our up and coming grant workshops are going to get pushed out, and the grant cycles as well too. So all the information that we have available at OED, please feel free to see me for additional information, and we'd love to connect with you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Jade. Okay, so just highlights of the tables. We do have Maui Electric is here to help if you wanted to ask any questions. Thanks for being here. Water and Fire Department will be over here. Lahaina Restoration, if you would like some information from them. Jeannie, are you going to be over here for buyout? Outside. Okay. So all of Four Leaf planning and both cultural and SMA shoreline permitting are outside, as well as the buyout program if you want to get more information. So thank you everybody for being here. We hope to see you April 7th. Thank you.